Hello and good morning, and welcome to my new podcast that I've just decided to do about 5 minutes ago. I've been wanting to re-look at some stuff, and put some more information out there for people, and just be another voice. There's so many people out there that are doing stuff like this, and who are looking at the issues of how to cope. Dealing with things in this life. It's very difficult. And, for most people, they're living in a world that kind of doesn't match what society is telling us should be the way that we're living our lives. It's like not everybody is doing well with a 3-car garage and a pool in the backyard. Some people do, but not everybody's got good health. Not everybody's in a relationship that is working and is thriving. There's so many, like for me, none of that stuff I've never experienced really any of that stuff except for a good relationship with my husband. But I just thought I'd just come on here and talk about this stuff, what's on my mind. I wanted to do a video vlog, but it's really time consuming to do a video vlog. So I'm just going to do an audio and just talk, about what's going on my heart. Like I know this last, since Russia invaded Ukraine, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. Really, going back since 2020 with the CVID going around, that man-made crap that's they're trying to kill people off. Like our world is pretty shocked and pretty fucked up right now. And as a survivor of abuse, it's kind of hard to cope, with the changes that's happening, and sort of the horrifying stuff that's going on that we're supposed to be okay with. Oh, never mind, smoke and mirrors, don't pay attention, just like the Wizard of Oz, don't pay attention to what's behind the curtain. Just go about your business, skipping along, right? And for me, as a survivor of abuse, a trauma survivor, it's I can, I'm very, very well aware that things are not okay. Even if I was a person who lived in a nice big fat home and I had lots of money and didn't have to worry about a job because I had tons of money, and my health was good, the world situation would be enough to flip you out. And then there's the rest of us who possibly don't have a job because we're just fucked. Maybe our health is going down, and maybe we don't have someone in our life who we can lean on, and or we can trust, or we can, just hang with to, allow, just to sort of be that support, right? That support system. And the support networks are overloaded, because there's just too many people right now that are in crisis, right? Of one type, or another, and for many reasons, right? And so I wanted to come on and just talk. This is just me talking from my heart. Like I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a survivor of abuse, And so, but I've lived a long time on this earth, and I've seen a lot of shit. And just like a lot of other people, right? I'm just willing to come on here and be honest about how I see things. And, it's hard. It's really, really hard when people are struggling. And how do you help people? And how do you even help yourself? Like, first you gotta help yourself, really. You gotta help yourself to be able to help somebody else, right? And in order to actually do anything, to get anywhere in this life, you really have to try to help somebody else, because in doing that, you're going to help yourself, right? So to be sitting sort of not able to move or do anything is a hard position to be in, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I mean, the only thing I can do is come on and do a little talk here because it's my computer's like a foot away from me and my headset's right here, and I can just talk and hopefully, at least come alongside people as somebody who understands how hard it is, and the fact that we do struggle. I'm a suicidal ideation survivor. Like, I never attempted suicide, but I was always very close to committing suicide. So I never took a bunch of. Well, I took a lot of pills. I mean, I did a lot of drugs. Was I trying to do when I was young, like when I was a teenager, and into my 20s? And was I trying to kill myself? Probably. I mean, deep down inside, I knew that I could overdose. I knew that, I could die from those drugs. I used to like pass out in the gutters and stuff like that, and it's like, I thought, at the time, I was like, I don't care. I don't care if I wake up. I don't care. That's how bad my life was, right? I really didn't care. And so, here I am today, pretty much because of choices that I made. Good choices, right? I got off the drugs. The only thing I'm addicted to now is pretty much caffeine and nicotine, but I'm working on getting rid of the nicotine thing. But the caffeine too, probably, because I won't be able to afford any more coffee. But the thing is like, I know all about trauma. I know all about hardship. I know all about suffering. I've been suffering my whole entire life. One type of thing or another. Really kind of horrible stuff that most people, probably can relate to. Maybe not exactly, because, none of our stories are exactly the same. But I've experienced so much loss and so much really discouraging shit, So I thought I'd just do sort of a talk, and I'll just upload them to YouTube. And I don't know if it'll be daily or not, because it depends on what's going on. Or if I just don't have anything to say. But I just wanted to start this off by just saying, like I used to do this sort of stuff on Blog Talk Radio. I had a daily broadcast, and survivors of abuse, I called it One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And I had all sorts of stuff. I was doing like, worldwide issues of human rights abuses, all sorts of things. I was talking about separate little broadcasts that I would do weekly, right? But I was doing a daily one. Actually, I was doing a couple of daily ones. But the thing is, I was very busy, and I had a lot of people following my stuff, and a lot of people who were suicidal and who were really not doing well, who would follow my stuff. And they would be like, I'm so glad I stumbled onto your broadcast, because I was going to kill myself until I listened to what you had to say. And then I decided to live, right? And I'm like, well, thank God, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes people don't have anybody to talk to who they can relate to, who actually gives a shit, who actually really understands, like, where you've been, right? Or where, at least that's in some way, sort of, what it's like to be in such a horrible situation, right? So I've been there. I know it's hard, and some days it's just really hard to maintain. And those are the days where I'm telling you, it's hard for me. I did an actual half an hour talk on Ren and Hi Ren, and that artist who's been around for quite some time, but he's starting to get, he's pushing, and really a lot of people are pushing his work, and so he's getting noticed a lot more than he has for a long time. So he's out there. You can find his stuff, Hi Ren, and his name is Ren, R-E-N. I did a video on that, on a few of his videos, talking about it as from a survivor's point of view. And I deleted it because I thought, who am I to be Uh, everybody else is commenting on his stuff and almost like they want a piece of him. Oh, Ren, it's like they're gonna. It's almost like they're just grabbing onto him, and everybody's just grabbing onto him. And I'm like, you know what? That's crap. Like, just leave the guy alone, man. He's an artist. He's an up and coming artist. He does reach out with his message, of hope. It's just like me, but he's doing it in a way that because he's very talented and gifted musically, um, and that people are just wanting to like grab onto him and just basically rip him to pieces. Everybody is just clamoring like Ren, Ren, and it's kind of like, to me it's sort of gross, right? Leave the dude alone. You know what I mean? It's like he's a trauma survivor, and it's like, everybody wants a piece of him. When I went public with my stuff, my books and stuff, it wasn't like that, because I had already um, wrote two of my books, put them out, and was working with a group of advocates as an older woman, right? That's a little bit different, you know. So I didn't have to go through that. Thank God. That's a terrible thing to do to somebody who's a trauma survivor, who's out there putting out their truth. I thought, I'm going to get rid of that video. Even though it was saying very nice things about him, I'm not falling into that garbage, because I think he's a trauma survivor that I worry that he's not going to make it. I worry that one day we're going to wake up and we're going to hear the news that he's killed himself. And it's like, how do I know? Because I know all about this shit, man. Like, two of my brothers killed themselves. I was suicidal. My dad was suicidal. Some of the stuff that he's talking about that he was doing is the same stuff that my dad was doing to try to kill himself. How long is Ren going to be able to hold out as a complex trauma survivor, right? It's, I can smell it. I'm a complex trauma survivor. And so, like, I can smell suicide, and I can smell danger. I can smell that sort of stuff, right? Like, it's an inner smell. It's like this thing that tells me, you know what? Like, that guy, I don't know I don't know how it's going to end for him, Um, it's a horrible, horrible fucking thing to have this thing that hangs around you that tells you, whatever negative feed it tells you, because all of our negative feeds are different, right? My negative feed, that internal feed that sort of swirls around in me, is going to be different than somebody else's that affects my day or affects my life, right? And I mean, I always tell people, I'm not suicidal. I would, because I did a lot of healing work. I did tons of healing work. It doesn't mean that things don't hurt. It doesn't mean that things don't crush us, Like, I mean, I talked about that a little bit, that I broke my shoulder in December. It really busted it bad, 5 places. They were gonna, they wanted to do surgery, and I didn't want to do surgery, because I knew the recovery would be too hard from that. So they said, well, we can just, we can let it heal, but you can't move it, because it was about ready to just fall completely apart within my muscles and skin. Right? It was just busted so bad, and in 5 places, and it was already busted in half before that. So I was in bad shape, and my ribs were. I trashed my ribs. I trashed my back. I hit my face when I fell. That's how I broke my shoulder. Fell on the ice, and I hit my chest and all of this. And I really, when I stood up, I'm a survivor of abuse. I just got up and I walked down to the hospital. But first, I went home because I wanted to use the bathroom there at my place, because I know their bathroom's full of junkies, syringes and blood and stuff. And I thought, I'll go to the bathroom at home. So I went home, went to the bathroom. It was very difficult to try to get my pants. I won't go into too many details, but I was in a lot of pain, and I had a smoke because I thought, well, just in case I'm in the hospital for a long time, And so then I wandered over to the hospital, and I'm just like, yeah, then they did some X-rays. They're like, wow, it's really bad. They're like, it's not good. You're gonna have to go see an orthopedic surgeon. So I had to this ordeal to deal with since December, right? Well, the orthopedic surgeon finally signed off on it because she was just making sure that it was gonna hold. And she said, well, it's looking good. It's starting to repair, and so, I think as long as you don't, fall on it again or do anything crazy, it should be all right. So, since December, I've been sitting around with this fucking broken shoulder that's been killing me. My ribs are, were screwed up in this fall because my ribs were broken when I was being abused, and my back and my whole body was just hurting, and it really brought around a lot of the sort of the same feelings that I had growing up being battered and abused, right? Being thrown into walls and just kicked around and, shoved in the chest against a wall, this sort of thing, right? Hurting my body. So that fall did sort of trigger me. And I was working at the time, and then a month later, or actually it was 2 months later, I got fired, right? Because they just didn't feel it. I was just doing, well, what they required for the job. And so off I go. I'm fired. Well, I'm almost 60. Who the hell do you think is going to fucking hire me, right? Like nobody, right? I can't stand on my feet for a job because my body's so fucked up. I can walk still. I don't need a wheelchair, but I can't stand for like 2-3 hours, right? It's just way too hard. I could do it for one day, and then I won't be able to move the next day, right? So my situation is fucked, and the government doesn't want to help me. They're like, oh, well, you're fine, whatever. Just go roll around in the dirt out there with the poor junkies, right? So that's where I'm headed, right? Most likely to the streets, especially, well, for a little while. And I'm like, well, I can handle that, like whatever. Like, it's not like that's such a big deal. I'm closer to the streets in my life than I ever could have been closer to a 3-car garage. I identify with the street people much better than I do with regular people. That's why I don't have any friends. But the thing is like, these things are so hard for people, right? I mean, you go through life and it's just loss after loss after loss. And we have to learn how to cope and how to deal with this stuff. Because, I mean, yeah, I have had suicidal thoughts. I do still carry that on. I don't plan my suicides anymore. But I think, wow, I'd be so much better off if I wasn't here, And who gives a shit? Like, nobody, right? And it's true. Nobody does. I have like 0 people that would actually really give a shit if I was not here. Most of them don't even know whether I'm here or not. And it's kind of like, well, okay, I'm used to being on my own. I kind of like it that way. I don't like that many people around me. My husband was somebody that, was a lot like me. We were both loners together. And, we enjoyed our own time, but when we did come together for dinner, or, we always had supper together, and we didn't do a lot together. We did some stuff together, but we really enjoyed each other's company when we were together. Like when we would sit and actually spend time together, it was quality time. You know what I mean? Like we really enjoyed each other's company, but we weren't connected at the hip. And so, because that drives me crazy. I can't even imagine having somebody around me like that. I'm used to doing stuff on my own. I'm used to being on my own, right? So that's not really the issue. It is lonely, for sure, since he's been gone. It's been this year in August, it'll be 5 years, and, I thought I'd already be gone. I didn't think my body would hold out this long. I keep thinking, oh, I'll be going home. Home is my home in heaven. That's where my home is, So when I say going home, I'm talking about going home, like leaving this earth, And at the rate the whole world is going, we all could be out of here soon, especially if they start nuking everybody. So, it's bad news, and how do you cope? How do you cope with what's going on in the world and then in your own personal life at the same time? And it's a fine balance, I think, I'm having to go back and because I did a lot of work obviously on learning how to cope. I'm still here. And I mean, I made massive progress to where I was before. Let me tell you, I don't have the same sort of manic episodes that I used to have. I don't have the same flashbacks. I mean, I used to be at work and I'd get these intrusive flashbacks, and I'd just have to deal with them until they went away, and then it would really flip me out for the rest of the day. And it was just weird. It was horrible, actually. I don't get those anymore. Like I've done a lot of work with my healing journey, and writing my books was a big help because it got all that stuff out. Doing all the video work and talking about all that stuff really helped me out. So yeah, I'm not in the same place that I was before. I'm in a lot better place. So even though I'm facing homelessness and my body's just broken, um, I just lost my job. I'm almost 60. My husband's dead. Um, you know, I can't even be in a relationship if I wanted to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do life anymore, right? Like, I'm sort of just waiting for my body to give up, right? And that's hard, right? That's sad. But the thing is that this is life. This is life, isn't it? This has been life for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's just that we have the ability to reach out and just like what was that old telephone commercial? Reach out and touch somebody. We have the resources now to the modern technology to reach out and touch somebody. So now everybody seems to understand and know about everybody's troubles because everybody's talking about it. But the thing is life was so much harder before, right? But we're coming back to that again because there's only these little windows of time where things seem to level out for the mankind on the earth. It's not for everyone, you know. I think about those kids over in India that sit there and they have to basically slaves, just for a bowl of food, right? Um, or some sort of small amount of money that doesn't really help, right? And people, selling their children, right? They have to stay alive. That's a terrible, terrible situation, And there's India. There's their government walking around going, "Oh, look at us, we're so wonderful." It's like I'm like, you people are slime balls, right? The whole world, it's such a facade. It's such a bunch of, it's, it's so, it's so fake. It's smoke and mirrors. It's masks, right? And it's just more masks on top of more masks. And there's so much bullshit going around. Nobody knows what the hell's really going on because there's so much untruth and deception going on, right? And it's like, oh, look at us. We're fine. We're great, right? In the meantime, if you look at a country's look at how the children in a country are being treated. That will tell you how the government is, right? That's all you have to do. Women, especially women and children. Look at the situation of how children are being treated, and women especially, in a country. And if you see a lot of human rights abuses towards women and children, then you know that country is just another crap ass country, right? So that's how I determine whether or not a country is decent or not, because they haven't dealt with any of their human rights stuff, right? And we people fought for human rights, and it all started around 1800. Really, I mean, there were there were times in the past where people fought for human rights, just in small, little, tiny ways. I mean, slavery was just rampant, and it wasn't just the African, people, right? I mean, every person, every people group on the planet was slaves at some point, right? And so, it's like, I mean, the African people were just the most recent except for the women and children right now who are slaves all around the world, right? And men too, but mostly women and children. You know, it's all coming back. It's coming back around to that. It's people fought for human rights. Human rights, what is human rights? It's dignity. It's having, it's treating people with dignity and care and concern and respect, and making sure that, to the best of your ability, that you can help them to try to meet their needs, Like, you shouldn't have to be selling your children off into some sort of, you know, selling your children off in some marriage, or even in a, you know, they sell these child brides in many of those countries where children are sold to these old men. And boys, they do the same thing with boys too, for sex trade stuff. Um, and for those kids, that's just part of life, right? It's like, the only way I can relate to that is because I was sexually abused as a child, as an 8-year-old, right? So it's just a little girl, and just to sit there, I can sort of put myself in their place, the fear and the trauma, right? But they're told by their parents, well, this is the way it must be, right? And so they just have to resign themselves that that's the way they're going to be. A lot of them try to kill themselves. Some of them try to escape and are killed. Some of them just beaten and battered so badly. And they do that on purpose because that way no other man would want them, right? And then they just put them on the street and make them beg and stuff like that. I was just one step from all that. It was just a different house with a different set of abusers for me, right? Um, my parents didn't starve us, but they certainly made life a living hell for us, It's like, that's why I can actually see what these people are going through, right? Because I've been there. Um, you know, I've been there with people trying to commit suicide and kill themselves, and where you have to actually, get them and get them to stop doing what they're doing, or get them some help. My dad was like that. My brother was like that. My other brother was suicidal too, but he finally made it. And so I understand all this stuff firsthand, right? And just violence, and knives out to the neck, just horrible stuff that I've seen in my lifetime. And how do you cope, right? It's like, I guess what it really all came down to me when I was in my 20s. I got off the drugs, and I thought, I want to live. I want to live a decent life. I'm tired of abuse. I'm tired of being around abuse. I'm tired of being around my friends' abusive partners, who were then, really starting to threaten to kill me, right? As well as my friend, right? Because I was a supporter, trying to help her to keep my friend safe from this man, from this guy, who was violent, a drug abuser, violent man, a violent dude. Um, I mean, it was absolutely insane. It was just a apartment complex, and what's really weird is my nephew was with his friends, lived in another part of that apartment complex, and they were dealing drugs. And this guy, my friend's boyfriend, went over and broke into their suite and took their drugs, took their coke. And this was so many years ago, it's ridiculous. But anyway, these guys, my nephew and his buddies, right, who were the dealers in the situation, knew that I was there, and I knew this guy, right? I mean, I didn't know that that's where that coke came from. I was doing it too, right? So anyway, my nephew gets a hold of me. He's like, "We're going to kill him. We're going to kill him. I'm just telling you, stay away, because, we're going to kill him." And I'm like, "Don't kill him, man. He's a loser. Like, he's a, maybe he deserves it. He beats on my friend, but don't kill him. Like, you'll end up being put in prison, right?" So they didn't kill him, but my nephew got killed with his friends by a drunk driver. Just a short time later. So, I've just been around a lot of horrible, horrible stuff, you know? And, I know a lot of people who are trauma survivors actually become addicted. It's called trauma addicted, right? Because heightened, the way that it makes you feel when you're in those trauma situations is kind of like a rush. It's like a high. You know, I mean, being raped as a child, that was a trauma rush, for me. It was, it was a nightmare, let me tell you. And my whole life was kind of like that because of the level of violence in my home. And so, you can become addicted to it, right? And because it really becomes then the only way that people feel like they can actually feel is when they're in that heightened state. Because it makes you feel, right? You either have to do a fight, flight, or freeze situation, and it gets the heart pumping, and to stay in that state is actually very unhealthy. I lived my whole life like that, in that cortisol state, high cortisol levels, because of the danger level in my home. And so between my parents, all the siblings, it was very dangerous, and it was horrible. It was a nightmare. You can just read my books if you really just want to find out. But that's a really unhealthy way to grow up. And so, not only is it just awful, right? But the damage done to my body just from being in that heightened state, from that cortisol and stuff like that, it's horrific. The damage done to my veins and to my body, right? And so, it's like, then as an adult, to be addicted to it, for me, I hate it. I don't want to ever feel that again. You know, to have my head bashed into walls again. I really don't want to be running down the street in the middle of the night, nowhere to go, right? I really don't want to be that girl being raped by someone who's 13 years old, or 21-year-old man as an 8-year-old girl. I really don't want to feel that again, and I really don't want to be beaten and battered and bashed with heavy things, I really don't want any of that stuff anymore. I don't want to be kidnapped anymore, sitting in a cab of a semi-truck with a guy threatening to rape me, locking the doors, right? No, I don't want that anymore, right? I don't want any more trauma. It's like I'm so fucking tired of bullshit, right? That's why part of me wants to end my life. Because I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I just can't even stand it anymore. I'm so tired of the fucking bullshit. And I know that's why my brothers killed themselves in their 30s, right? I was heading the same way, right? I always have been. But no, I'm going to stick it out, and I'm going to do the exact opposite that most people would have figured that I would have done. I'm going to stick it out, right? It takes balls to stick it out. It takes great courage to continue on as this broken mess that, whether we created ourselves or somebody else did, it takes great courage and balls to continue on, right? And if it's one thing I'm known for, is the fact that I will stand up. I will, fight if I have to. And I will do what I have to do, right? I do have balls, I mean, It's just a funny saying, but the thing is it really hits home. Like I do have that brute kind of strength to be able to say, you know what, I don't care. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll be maybe at some point I'll just fall down on the sidewalk and somebody will just have to scrape me up off the sidewalk. But it won't be by my hand. You know, it takes great strength to be a complex trauma survivor and keep going. You know, without having to need someone to hold hands with me every second of the day to make sure that I'm okay. Right? Somebody that needs to check in on me. That's why I kind of I do my own thing. I don't want a lot of people around me. It forces me to to be able to do this on my own and prove it to myself that all those horrible things that my abusers told me growing up, and all those, I mean, as a young girl all the way through, and all those horrible things they did to me does not dictate how my life ends. You know what I mean? If I was to kill myself because of the trauma, because of being so tired and so I can't hardly do this anymore, is to give that power to them. Is to say, you know what? Yeah, as a sacrificial victim, you know, that's what I would then become, a sacrificial victim to their abuse, to what they put on me. So they would have won the fight, just like my brothers. And that's why I do talk a lot about that, because my brothers, you know, killed themselves, and my parents won, right? Yeah, my parents won. And it makes me angry, really angry, right? So I worry about people who are addicted to trauma, because it's a cycle that then just keeps repeating itself, and many times they just don't end up getting better. They just end up getting worse. They end up killing themselves, right? And so, you know, if you're struggling, you really have to get help. If you can't do it on your own, then you need to get help, right? And if you're, you know, if you can't cope today and you think you're gonna end your life, remember what I said. You got to stick this out, right? That's, to me, it's not, to me, it's just not okay that somebody kills themselves. It's really not. Because they lose, we go on, right? People always say, oh, it's so hard on everybody around them, and, you know, you just have to let them go, and, you know, actually, who it really hurts is that person who's dead. Because they lose the opportunity to be able to take back their right to life, right? Whatever has caused them to and put them there is evil. You know what I'm saying? Like when somebody or some people or something comes against you and it hurts you so incredibly deep and wounds you so incredibly bad that you can't cope, and you just want to go kill yourself. That's evil. It truly is. It's evil at its core, right? The world says, "Oh no, it's perfectly acceptable. We'll even help you do it. If you live in Canada, they'll just help you commit suicide," right? And to me, it's like the whole purpose of the whole reason why mankind is built the way that we are as a human being, is because we fight for our last breath unto the end. That's what my husband did. He fought to the last breath to stay alive, not just for himself. I mean, it was a lot of it was for himself. He really enjoyed life, unlike me. I hate life. You know, he enjoyed it. It's weird that we would actually get along together, but we really did. We were like a perfect pair, but the exact opposite. But he wasn't abused as a child. He didn't experience a lot of that horror, right? But he experienced a lot of horror later as a very sick man. And he stuck it out, man. He's like, you know, I'm going to live as long as I can, right? That's what I want to do. And me, I'm always trying to get out, you know. So I think about that, and I'm like, wow, he had balls, man, to stick it out. And he wasn't just, like I said, he wasn't just sticking it out for me. That would have hurt my feelings. Being in that much pain for that many years, stick it out just for me. He was sticking it out for himself. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably why we got along, because I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, I'm sticking it out, right? I don't care how hard it gets. So yeah, I'm gonna go sit on the street. I may get raped, whatever. It's not like I haven't been raped before. Um, I may get beaten and kicked around. Well, whatever. Does it really fucking matter? I've been beaten and kicked around before. I guess I just have to deal with it again. Um, you know, this is what I'm facing, right? And many of us are facing. That's what people are going through on the street right now. I will tell you, I'll be doing it alcohol drug free because I will not be using drugs. And I think what I'm going to do is take my guitar. If it gets stolen, then I'll just save up and I'll get another one. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to strum and I'm going to play my little songs. And I'm going to sit there under, near a shady tree. And I'm just going to try to get through the best I can. Right? We have to just keep going. Life deals people some horrible shit, And it's like, you just have to keep going, right? And so, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So we'll see what we'll talk about tomorrow. If you're struggling, like I said, you take it easy, you get some help. Don't give up. Don't give up. Just don't give up. Don't kill yourself. Like, seriously, and it doesn't have to be for me, because a lot of people say, don't kill yourself, for me. It has to be for you, right? For me, I mean, hey, I would care, right? Of course I would. I care about people. That's why I talked about Ren, and I'm going to probably put it in the title here, because anybody listening to this may not understand. If you watch his videos, he's either putting on a really good show, and he's pretending that he's very, very, very sick and not well and not able to cope. It's either an act or it's real. And I thought about it very hard, long and hard yesterday, and I thought, no, I think it's real. And I think that scares me even more, because if it was just an act, then you could say, oh, he's just a flamboyant, he's just, he likes that, freaking people out. You know what I mean? This is what he does. But part of me thinks that it's real, because I've known too many people who are suicidal and who are complex trauma survivors who are into it's called trauma addiction, right? Like the closer they can come to death, the more excited they are, and they got to keep repeating it. And it's like it's an addiction to trauma. It's addiction. It brings that heightened response, that cortisol response, which can, we all feel it in certain situations, and sometimes it feels good if there's no danger around. But a lot of times people will, obviously, I mean, sex is one of those situations, right? But if there's no danger around, it's pleasant, right? Whereas if there's danger around, it's a different type of response, and a lot of people are addicted to that, and they end up killing themselves, right? So, because they either get so tired of it, or because they can't seem to get off of it, or it's like a drug, right? Or they just take it too far, And I worry about people like that. I really do. Because I had friends like that, right? And my brother, I believe, was like that. The one who sexually abused me. Because he was into all sorts of really twisted, evil sex stuff, right? Which is what he put on me, right? At 8 years old. So, if you are struggling and you're having a hard time, make sure you get some help. I wish my brothers would have got some help. you know. Even for me, I mean, I sit around sometimes and I think, you know what, I just want out of the pain, as you know, as I used to do, but I don't get down to that point anymore because I've done a lot of healing work. But I still sit there and I think, God, this sucks, you know. How much more of this bullshit can I take? And that's the thought. And then you know what I do? I let it go. I'm like, no, you know what? Go ahead. I think what it is that little girl inside of me who was beaten and battered and abused and raped is still there. And you know that little part of myself that I used to be. And I don't want any more of that, right? And I think, you know, if I'm not going to be treated well and I'm just going to be beaten and battered and raped again, what the hell? You know, I started out my life like that. Why the hell would I want to be continuing on in that? Like, I mean, you know, I had a portion of my life where it was pretty sane and pretty normal, even though it's been hard. You know, I didn't have any of that around me anymore, and been quite treated quite well by people, especially my husband and a lot of my great friends. You know, it's like, why do I want that again? Why do I think that's going to happen to me again? Because I may end up on the street. That's why. As a 58-year-old woman, because there's no help for, you know, I may end up in a shelter, which then puts me at risk for all sorts of shit, right? I'm just pissed off about it. Because I'm like, well, that sucks, you know? Which then that little part of me says, well, you could get out of it. I know many, you know, there's many ways you can get out of it. This little voice that tells me, that little evil fucking voice that tells me that I could just end it and I could be free of all this, right? That's evil, man. It sounds like comfort. It sounds great, right? But it's so evil, it's not funny. I see it for what it is now. It's pure evil. Evil at its most core, right? That says, oh, you can just get out of it. Here, we'll help you along. We'll give you a drug that'll just kill you. No problem. That's Canada for you. Kill anybody off who wants to die. Want to die? Oh, hey, we'll help you. We won't help you live, but we'll help you die. That's why I'm telling you, man, if you're struggling today, you have to stick this out. You really do. If just for the very reason to say, fuck you to the system and fuck you to death, right? That is so fucked up. So what I'm telling you is to live, right? That's what I'm going to do today, and that's what I want you to do as well. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you maybe tomorrow.